The Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast. Real Doctor Who fans with real Doctor Who opinions.
Hello, fellow Whovians, and welcome back to the Doctor Who Podcast. I'm your host, Brett, and in today's episode, number 336 of the podcast, I'm going to be looking at the news, the latest breaking news that we got from the TARDIS console room, either that or from Big Finish Productions' website. Either way, I've heard it both ways. Regarding the return of Jodie Whittaker reprising her role as the 13th Doctor. But again, I think that there is some massive layers to explore. You know, you could say that, there's some untold stories, hidden corridors echoing from the past, but I think that it is going to be a little bit more... Anyway, we'll get into that. So, as well as some of the other news, so grab your headphones, adjust your bow tie, and join me as I discuss Jodie Whittaker's return to time, space, and in an audio universe, because this is the Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast, and thank you for downloading and listening. Please email the show and at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. You can tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. We'd love to hear from you. And that being said, let's get into this as I'm going to break this down. Well, first off, before I get to that's like the headline right there. So there is timestamp so that you could, and chapter notes so that you can skip ahead. But I would love and appreciate if you are able to listen to the entirety of the show. All right. Well, first on the docket, I want to go over the nominations for the 2024 Scribe Awards, as Big Finish has been honored with having 5 nominations in the audio drama category. As per the Big Finish website, it says nominations for this award, as presented by the International Association of Media Tie-In Writers, have been revealed, and the winners will be announced at the San Diego Comic-Con on Friday, the 26th of July, 2024. Currently, all of these 5 have discounts, even though I think they should have significantly discounted one of these box sets because of the award. And if you don't know, just wait till you listen to all of this. So it says Big Finish Productions is guaranteed a win. Guaranteed a win in the audio drama category, with writers in various Doctor Who ranges having all received all the nominations as follows. So in no particular order, I think I was looking at this. Is it? It is done in alphabetical order, so that's how it is doing it. So from the box set of the 11th Doctor Chronicles, Everywhere and Anywhere, All's Fair by Max Kashevsky, who I did some research on, and this is his only writing for Big Finish and for Doctor Who, so, well, at least in audio form. And, he, according to the timescales, which, again, I did look up to see where these ratings were coming from, he got it. I think he has the highest out of all of them, with like a 9.2. The rest of them are about 8.8 and 8.2 or whatever. So All's Fair in the Doctor Chronicles, Everywhere and Anywhere. And again, this has Jacob Dudman portraying the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith. As Matt Smith, his star just continues to shine and does not have time for Doctor Who and Big Finish, which is a shame, but understandable. The sad part about the whole thing is Jacob Dudman is looking at moving on from his portrayal of the 11th Doctor and working and doing some other stuff, which you can't blame him. He is about 24, 25-year-old man at this point in time. He got his fame during the Matt Smith years as like a 13, 14-year-old teen, just making voice imitations on YouTube. So you can't blame him for that. But I know Liam is a huge fan of the 11th Doctor Chronicles, especially the past 4 box sets. Next, in alphabetical order, The Robots 6. Yes, for those of you who have forgotten, I haven't, but for those of you that have forgotten, Robots, the robots that we met briefly in, well, I mean, first off, there's Robots of Death, which this is from, And then we have met Livchenko from her origin story with the 7th Doctor. And then Livchenko met the 8th Doctor and has been traveling with him. And then, we get the other companion, which is, not Sally. Anyway, there was a point in time where the Doctor Livchenko wanted the Doctor to leave her for about like a year. And she left, or the Doctor and Helen left for like a second and then came back and picked her up. And even though it was a moment in her time, it was this whole box set, and it was only supposed to be 4 box sets, but you know what? Maybe it was selling just like gangbusters or whatnot. Yeah, according to this, I just barely did some research, just looked it up. So this took place during Ravenous 2, when Livchenko left the Doctor and the TARDIS behind for just 1 year. And during the year, she would live on Caldor and get to know her sister Tula all over again. But Caldor is going through a period of tumultuous change. And so again, the Robots of Death, you have 3 stories here. The one that is nominated for the award is the second story, Face to Face, by John Dorney. And I think, obviously, John Dorney, quality writer. Robots 6 was not the Robots that we were anticipating on getting. I think I listened all the way to Robots 3. And then when I think I just I didn't piece out. I do own them. I just, didn't have any time for them. Next, for the Scribe Awards, we have the 5th Doctor adventure, In the Night, and the story Pursuit of the Nightjar by Tim Foley. Now, I have listened to this. Out of all of these, this is the one I have listened to, and I think it is a fantastic story. This was released in September 2023. This did feature in our podcast, I want to say around... So here is a segment of our thoughts of Pursuit of the Nightjar by Tim Foley from our episode 298 of the Dr. Alhambra Podcast, which was the September 2023 reviews. Punny moment. Let's
Thank you.
Go to
I'm here all week.
I'm going to start off with the 5th Doctor Adventures In the Night. There are 2 stories in this. One is the Pursuit of the Nightjar by Tim Foley, which is a 4-part episode, and Resistor by Sarah Grachala, whatever it is.
Grachala.
And that is a 2-part story.
I like her.
Now, Pursuit of the Nightjar, I really found captivating because not only is it you have somebody who is bringing some medicine to help a civilization. He's also being pursued by somebody so he's in the ship called the Nightjar, and he's being pursued by his nemesis in a ship called the Nemesis, which I kind of think it's fun. You have this situation where he's going to, because the ships are of almost exact same make and model, like she can't catch up with him. She can only hope that his ship will break down, and maybe like every so often as she fires a missile that he will not pay attention and be able to be destroyed. He hacks her system and he starts having conversations with her. And so he is being the person who's pursuing him, he is establishing a relationship with, even though it's only audio. Neither one knows what the other looks like, but they almost have a, you know what, if it wasn't for this, we would be friends type of a situation, which I really kind of find interesting. The other thing that I really enjoyed is, according to this story, the captain of the Nightjar, Nightjar, Captain Gobin, was the William Hartnell Doctor's first hero that he heard about upon leaving Gallifrey. And he'd always wanted to meet Captain Gobin because of this mercy mission that, was successful. And what is going on is this is almost a fixed point in time and this is why I like it. This is almost a fixed point in time to the Doctor. Captain Gobin has to get the medicine to this planet to survive, to help the people survive this plague. You also have a situation that is setting up Nyssa possibly leaving in Terminus, where this guy, Captain Gobin, leaves everything behind to take this medicine from one place to another, not knowing if he will survive, and he risks it all. She also oddly criticizes him because they show a picture of his or she finds a picture of his family, and she's like, how could you leave this wife and 3 kids to go on this mission that you may not ever come back with? This is reckless. And I kind of like it also because this is younger Nyssa, and we know older Nyssa eventually does the same exact thing. So I kind of like that kind of gets like, a new set of eyes with the whole situation. Now, as the fixed point in time is into it, you have the Captain Gobin gets killed into the mission. I believe the cliffhanger for episode 1 is his death, which basically now you're set up with a situation of the Return of the Rocket Men, where, Stephen has to be his own savior. And so I'm like, oh, so I know exactly what's going to happen. The Doctor is going to have to be, and the Doctor even says, I guess I have to be this Captain Gobin and, fake a death and whatnot, because this thing has to happen. He is my hero. This is my first non-Gallifreyan hero. This has to happen. It is a fantastic story. I don't want to spoil the end on how it does, but it is a beautiful story. There's only one line that irks me at all, and it is a line done by Tegan. But besides that, also I will tell you, Tegan is very optimistic in this story, which I found really odd.
I noticed that from the first episode. I've listened to part of the first episode, and you're like, Tegan's being really nice in this. What's up?
I mean,
this isn't the Tegan we know and love.
Yeah. Here's a question. Where does this whole nightjar thing come from? Because I swear that's not the first time I've heard of a spaceship being called the nightjar. Or
the spaceship nightjar you're thinking of is an audio game.
It is, but I mean, there's got to be a reason for why, spaceships, get called the nightjar. Like, there's got to be another.
So
more
he does.
pop culture or
the captain tells his nemesis the meaning behind the nightjar, and it's basically, I can't remember what word for word, but essentially what it is it is a person doing something that everything is against them. Even to their nemesis, they are doing something in their eyes which is worth a great risk, even to their their own detriment or death. And so there's I didn't get it perfectly, but that's kind of what nightjar means. And so, I mean, that's the only thing I can tell you. So, but I truly love Pursue the Nightjar, and I would give it easily a 9.5. I think it has massive re-listen value. I think it is. There's so many layers to think about regarding this whole adventure. And again, I was so worried that we were going to have a Return to the Rocketmen type of a situation. They set it up, and they did not, which was really good. And interestingly, there is a episode that had this, like, this was being made at one point in time when Once in Future was being made. And one of the episodes in Once in Future, it was what was it? It was the no, not What in Some Future. There's an episode. Oh, sorry. It was the World War II episode in the Fourth Doctor Adventures that both you two really liked, where, it was the Butterfly Club that was kind of going back in time and messing around. Part of the Pursuit of the Nightjar, the villains are time-traveling spectators who just want to watch and observe their hero, which is similarly to the World War II story, just a fascinating situation, because all these people wanted to do is be there, see the moment in which it happened, and yet they were kind of what caused the death of their hero. And again, just as fascinating. Absolutely love it.
Wow. I started it, and I do need to finish it, because the sound design sounds phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Resistor by Sarah Grahala. Remember back in the day with the Main Range or Monthly Adventure, where once a year there'd be 4 solo stories? This should have been one of those 4 solo stories that was only 1 episode long, because this was 2 parts, and it was way too long for 2 parts. The synopsis is Warsaw, 1982, plot twist. People in history did not think the way that modern people do. And so, of course, there is some tragedy, kind of love story type of situation that is going on. But it just is so... It's funny. They have the soundscape, the incidental music is very fast-paced. It is the slowest fast-paced, action-y movie type thing that I've heard in quite some time. It's 2 parts. It should have been 1 part. Even at 1 part, I don't think it's a good episode. I was listening to the commentary on it. Sarah Grahala really likes the idea or whatever. Good for her. I find it probably about a 5. I just didn't like it. So, and yeah, that's my review of the 5th Doctor in the Night. Moving from that, we will go to the one that we've all listened to, the Doctor Who Once and Future, the Martian Invasion of Planetoid 50. So yeah, next, moving on, we have, again, the 11th Doctor Chronicles, Everywhere and Anywhere, Sins of the Flesh by Alfie Shaw. Again, this is one of the next stories in that, I believe, Volume 5, if memory serves me right, of the Everywhere and Anywhere for the 11th Doctor. And then you have the last one, which is the 11th Doctor Chronicles, Everywhere and Anywhere, Spirit of the Season by Georgia Cook. So I'm, right now, at least in the US, you have probably a sale of about $4. So probably, price of what it was for pre-release or whatnot. You'd think with all 5 of these, they should have given a little bit more of a discount, but whatever. I would put my vote for Pursuit of the Nightjar. It is a fantastic story. I think Liam would... I'm not sure where he would lie with the Everywhere and Anywhere box set, but I'm sure that that's where his vote would go for. And Legion would, vote for Robot 6, having not listened to it. But that's just the kind of guy Legion is. He's all in on because of reasons, I guess you could say. So yeah, there's that. All right, next is something that I know Liam will be excited about, and something that I'm kind of irked by. Now, I have not been a fan of the Paternoster Gang, and I think the first series of the first 4 box sets of Series 1 was not good. You know, you have Vastra, who is just a curmudgeonal racist and speciesist and whatnot. You have Strax, who is essentially brain dead most of the time. And then you have Jenny, who is a very delightful person. And I did not like any of them. I was forced to listen to them all by Liam, and I did under not duress, but not something I wanted to do. Well, now you have season 2, and I know in the last podcast that we kind of did for reviewing, I want to say it was the October 2023 releases, and Legion was all about the first box set of season 2 of the Paternoster Gang. And he said, no, it's actually good. And you know what? Sorry, burnt me once, burnt me multiple times with despicable characters. No, hard pass. So I wouldn't give that a listen to unless I, was, what would the best way to say, strongly persuaded by you, the listeners. And so, yeah, that would be the only way that I would get that actually listened to. So keep that in mind. If you'd like to persuade me to listen to the Paternoster Gang Volume 2 episode or box set 1 or whatnot, email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. You can tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. But one of the things I don't like, that I'm pretty sure Liam does like, is what they're doing with the second season of the Paternoster Gang, which is in each of these box sets for the second season is they are throwing a classic Doctor in. Now, you can say, good cross, Doctor Who, cooperation. Sorry. These are new Who companions, characters, or whatever, and they are getting crossovered in one story, mind you, with a classic Doctor. So again, trying to connect the classic with the new, trying to bridge the gap between the old fans and the new fans, which again, if you listen to the previous podcast that I did, I think is something that the BBC needs to do a little bit better job of, instead of, just cutting off the old fans and saying, like what we're doing or else, SOL. Compared to what Big Finish is doing, is they're trying to bridge the gap between fandoms. So we have classic, Doctors or whatnot, Ickley's in one story. Again, I don't like it because it's, I don't know. The fourth story in the first volume of the Paternoster Gang, we had the connection of Jago. He made his appearance in there. We've also had, Jago in The Haunting of Strax or whatever it's called. I don't care. I listened to it, didn't like it, but whatever. Then in box set 1 of the second volume, you had Paul McGann play the 8th Doctor in one of those stories. In box set 2 of volume 2, you had Tom Baker as portraying the 4th Doctor. Again, I know that these characters are going to be able to need to know. Yeah, they're going to need to know these characters because of what happens in A Good Man Comes to War. They owe him. They are in his debt. However, the thing about that is that I kind of don't like is Strax came from a battlefield. I'm fine with that. That's what needs to happen. If they are in a debt, they need to kind of know them also previously as well as currently constituted. But that is just a nitpick of mine. So then in volume 2, box set 3, you have the second Doctor as portrayed by Michael Troughton, Pat's son, reprising his role in one of these stories, which again, I'm fine with, but I also think it is just kind of a try to get people to buy this. Because again, I was kind of curious, kind of keep my fingers crossed that, one and done for volume 1 for Paternoster Gang. I'm curious if they saw a boost in sales and they're trying a gimmick. I see this as kind of a gimmick because you'd think that you'd want to have the Doctors and a little bit more. But again, and if they really wanted to, they should get David Tennant's 10th Doctor in, because that would, you're connecting New Who with New Who, but you're also getting people, probably the most popular New Who Doctor out of them all, to tie into characters that he has not been connected with yet. So I think that would be kind of important. And again, somewhere along the line, they need to have how Jenny and Vastra met the Doctor and became into their debts, how Strax came into his debt. That needs to be a thing. I think that would be super important to the Paternoster gang. And I know one of the things that Legion has said is we don't need an origin story for everything. I get it. But if you're going to throw in these classic Doctors and you have the Good Man Goes to War storyline where they're all in his debt, well, you also need to share how they're indebted, or just not use them, in my opinion. We don't need to have an origin story for the Ice Warriors. We don't need to have an origin story for a couple of other things. We already have a fantastic Centauran origin story from the Lost Stories, which is fantastic with the Sixth Doctor. But I'm not a fan of this, but you might be. And again, if you'd like to reach out and tell me why I'm wrong, go ahead, email the show, tweet the podcast, whatnot. And then the last thing, which is the main purpose of the podcast, is the Jodie Whittaker returning to Doctor Who. And it says Big Finish Productions, in partnership with BBC Studios, today announces its first ever 13th Doctor audio drama as Jodie Whittaker returns to the Whoniverse alongside Mandeep Gill as Yasmin Khan. So, first seen on screen in 2017, they made history, blah, blah, blah. She is now back in brand new series of 12 one-hour full cast audio adventures in time and space, due to be released in July 2025. Now, I like this, and I'm also kind of annoyed by this, because currently, and I made this, I believe it is super important to be consistent. Now, when for months after the Call Me Master series came out, we were inundated with, on the slider, on the main page for Big Finish, the first two, Call Me Master and the Joe Martin Fugitive Doctor box set pre-order. But there was no storyline. It was just, hey, pre-order this, it's going to come out, and it was on the first two sliders. Then a couple months later, many months later, I can't even remember, I want to say March or so of the year, they were still on there, even after they announced the 60th anniversary, Big Finish 60th anniversary celebration storyline of Once and Future. They still had not had put on Once and Future on the slider at all to pre-order, even though the dates for release were known at that time. And we even had, we even knew that there was 8 stories. Some of the titles were not known. The cover art definitely was not known, but at least there was some information that was known. However, with the slider, they still had the Call Me Master and Fugitive Doctor on the slider during what should have been a celebratory, pre-order announcement on the first slider of the main page. Now, that could get confusing, and if so, go to Big Finish's main website, bigfinish.com, and just see the top slider, and that is what is to drive your news, your pre-orders. That is the most important thing. I run our school's website, and that has to be, the first important thing that I want the parents to see, the community to see, has to be on slider number 1. Slider number 2 is also important. Slider number 3 is less than important, but still there. The last couple sliders are, people will never probably slide through them. And to have the Fugitive Doctor and the Call Me Master on the first 2 sliders, and no Once and Future at all for the longest time for pre-order, even though the Once and Future pre-order date was available, and Call Me Master and Fugitive Doctor were, massive question marks, I was kind of irked by this. Now we have the announcement, so a couple months ago, we got the announcement of the Fugitive Doctor was going to be released in January 2025. About 2 years after it was announced to be pre-ordered. The Call Me Master was to be released, the first box set to be released in February 2025. Again, about 2 years after the initial announcement to be released. So we kind of got these things like way, way late. Now we have the Jodie Whittaker series that is coming out. Monthly range, mind you, for 12 months. And we already have a date. I just find that fascinating. And now, on the slider, the Jodie Whittaker news is not, and again, I'm recording this 4 days later after the announcement of the Jodie Whittaker reprising her role on audio. I mean, yeah, it might be 4 days, but right now it's already on slider number 4. Slider number 5 is the Fugitive Doctor. Slider number 6 is the Sacha Dhawan Call Me Master. So they were really quickly to re-put those on the news slider, which is, should be your go-to for people who are trying to find out what's new. But so I'm kind of irked by that. Ooh, up to 80% off of sale novel adaptations. If only I didn't own them all. Anyway, so I just think that's annoying and kind of an interesting thing. But so I want to look at this news. And Jodie Whittaker says that she is over the moon to be joining Big Finish for more adventures in the TARDIS. Recording the 13th Doctor and Yaz is a really lovely thing to revisit. One of the things Mandeep and I used to love about Doctor Who was getting in, doing a new episode, meeting a brand new cast. I cannot wait to step back in those boots and put on the coat and get cracking. So I like the excitement that she has for this. The sad part about it is what is it? Dan, which is what, John Bishop, I think, the actor, comedian, John Bishop, Dan, whatever his last name is, he is not going to be able to reprise his role. Now, he might be busy or whatnot, but because of the corner that Chris Chibnall painted the Jodie Whittaker era in, we really don't have any opening to bring in Dan to make a return to the series. Sadly, we kind of don't really have a... we're also, because of Chris Chibnall's writing, we don't have really a good avenue to bring back, Ryan and Graham. I mean, nobody really wants Ryan back in the show. I don't, but who could use a fine block of wood? I mean, it would be a fine block of wood to just listen to. But that's besides the point. And so because of Chris Chibnall's writing, I think you're only going to be given Mandeep and Jodie Whittaker to reprise their role as Yaz and the 13th Doctor. You might be able to squeeze in the 13th Doctor going on solo adventures and meeting new companions along the way, and then going back and revisiting Mandeep. You can also have the 13th Doctor, the prison years. But I think she wasn't even in the TARDIS during that time. And so I think because of Chibnall's writing, because of, again, I will criticize RTD, especially the second time around. I don't think the writing is good. And when I was watching Dot and Bubble, you can tell that most of these adventures, there is no real in-between. They haven't been traveling with each other that long. Now, there might be an opening, but it wasn't like it was with, just do something for like what they did back in the classic era, or even in the early 2005 show. where you'd see them running from a previous unknown, unseen, before the introductory music, action, and just know that they had an adventure. From the previous episode to that episode, you can put in extra adventures. And Chibnall has not done that, and I don't think RTD has done that in Season 1, Series 14, Season 40 of the Doctor Who. And so I find it sad that Jodie Whittaker is going to be kind of stuck. But I do like that they are doing what the Fourth Doctor Adventures used to do, monthly adventures, the Eighth Doctor Adventures, monthly adventures. I do like that they're releasing them, I think, once a month. There's at least 12 of them available for pre-order. And there's download available, and then collector's edition CD and download. And at least for me in America, there is no special discount for the for mailing the collector's edition, even though I would not get them on physical copy. But I just looked into it, and it's about $70, $80 for the whole thing, because they're not doing it in box sets, which possibly would have made me picking them up a tad bit cheaper. Now, you do have, and to continue on with this story, it says Big Finish's chairman, Jason Haig-Guillory, said this year Big Finish is celebrating its 25th anniversary of producing full cast Doctor Who audio dramas. So when we were granted the license, now this is what I really like about this, what Jason Haig-Guillory said. He kind of let us peek behind the curtain. So when we were granted the license to create new stories set during the 13th Doctor's era, we immediately set to work. Now, I think that's interesting, because I think, and there will be a podcast in the near future about what's going to happen with the Ncuti Gatwa Doctor, because Disney does not seem, according to so many articles that my phone has suggested and recommended to me, there's so many articles that are being written about Disney not being happy, Disney pulling funding. Maybe Disney didn't really want to give funding, but it was the only way that they could get and license Bluey until 2027, according to one of the articles that I read. And so in order to get that license to be able to stream Bluey, they had to commit to 2 seasons of Doctor Who. And again, what I said in a previous podcast, the Ahsoka series, Disney Plus, came out and, patted themselves on the back, saying that episode 1 was the highest rated or highest viewed new content on Disney Plus for 2023. And, with how many minutes or whatever. And then, because of the kind of controversy, I don't know, didn't want to watch it, the kind of controversy surrounding the Acolyte series, where they released the first two episodes, similarly to Doctor Who. And they came and said that this was the highest viewed new series on Disney Plus for 2024, even though Doctor Who had come out at least a month or so beforehand in 2024. So they have not gone to bat for Doctor Who's viewing figures. We know that viewing figures for Doctor Who on BBC One and also the iPlayer is struggling. And so it's going to be kind of interesting to see, and to go back to what I was talking about, is Jason Haig-Guillory said they were granted license to create new stories. So again, RTD is, if we were to look at this as a comic book series, the classic series would probably be Volume 1. Now, according to the BBC iPlayer, now that includes the TV movie. I think TV movie kind of is like, I don't know what it would be, a volume. I'm not gonna give it a 2. I could give it a 1A or a 1B. but the classic series 1963 to 1989, Volume 1. Then 2005 to the end of Jodie Whittaker's era would be Volume 2. Then the 14th Doctor, David Tennant, to Ncuti is Volume 3. That's if they were, you were collecting these in a comic book, long box, short box, or whatever. That's what I think that they would do. That's what they would have to separate each era, 3 different volumes. So it's kind of interesting that they were granted release or license to create new stories, meaning that the BBC has allowed them to create stuff from Volume 1 all the way to the end of Volume 2. Now it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens with Ncuti Gatwa's series if we get Wilderness Years Part 2. Are we going to have like virgin novelization, BBC books that are coming out of the woodwork? I think it's going to be a hard thing to do because we as a society kind of, and this is just from my perspective, also as an educator, is we as a society aren't reading as much as we used to. I used to go to convenience stores and I would see people behind the counter reading a book before, I got rung up for my Slurpee or whatnot. Now, every single time you go into a convenience store and they're just waiting for a customer to ring up, they're playing, some iPhone game. And so it's going to be kind of interesting to see if there is a Wilderness Years Part 2. Are they going to get the license to do Ncuti's era, the 14th Doctor era? Hopefully not this bi-regeneration era because, swipe left to that. Nope, not into that one bit at all. So I think that's kind of interesting wording that Jason Hay Guillory said, because now it seems like they have unlimited access to doing everything from 1963 all the way up to 2022. So that's a huge era to encompass. And I feel as though, and what I really like about Big Finish, again, not being paid by them at all, don't get anything for free, don't get anything early. What I like about Big Finish is they try to fill in the gaps to make things make sense. Once in Future, the 7th Doctor story made sense of the hybrid from the 12th Doctor story. I did not like the hybrid. It didn't, to me, I found it confusing, and it never seemed to be something that was fully, thoroughly explored. It was just something that was just kind of thrown out there. And I like that Big Finish came in and made sense of it. Will Big Finish be able to make sense of the Timeless Child or the bi-regeneration? Again, bi-regeneration has destroyed kind of for me the season 6B storyline. I don't like it. Anyway, that's, again, it's my thing. I think it could be interesting. Big Finish could breathe life into the Jodie Whittaker era. But again, you still have the stinker of the Flux waiting for you. It's going to be perched right there. You can go to Carnival Planet. Yaz and the 13th Doctor will be able to figure out how to do tightrope jumping and whatever to get out of the being tied up by Dogman on the first planet on Flux episode 1. So, at least we can explore that. But again, and I will say, and just to, also play devil's advocate, the 10th Doctor and Donna series from Big Finish also gave us an interesting situation because it took place during the 4th season, and we constantly had I thought I saw something on your back storyline. Well, Big Finish Audio, they would do that from time to time with the 10th Doctor and Donna on audio. And I thought that was a fantastic thing to connect the storyline, but not have it hang over the entirety of the story. It was just the 10th Doctor and Donna having fun, having adventures, and then every so often is that something on your back? Or what is that on your back type of a situation? I hope that we can move beyond The Timeless Child and that this audio series will do the 13th Doctor justice and will have some good writing, and it won't have the Timeless Child hanging over, lingering out there, or the Flux for that matter. But at the end of the day, that bookend is waiting. And that's the difference between, I feel, the 6th Doctor and the 7th Doctor especially, is we didn't know what the bookend was going to be. All we knew is the 6th Doctor's last line, carrot juice. And then he was face down on the ground, possibly, done in by either carrot juice or the exercise bike that Mel put him on. Like, that's all we knew. And then, of course, we have this 7th Doctor that ended with Ace, and the Doctor walking off. And then we have him in the TV movie getting gunned down just before the millennium. And it's, there's so many like mysterious bookends to get to that point. The Flux lingering there, I think, is going to be the hard part for all of this. And, Chris Chibnall didn't do anybody a favor whatsoever. So it'll be interesting. What are your thoughts about the 13th Doctor box set? What are your thoughts about any of the things that I talked about regarding the Scribe Awards and or the Paternoster gang and being kind of used by... used how they're using the previous Doctors to get people to pick up their audios. Email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. You can tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. And until next podcast, I will see you in time.
You have been listening to the Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast. Doctor Who is owned and trademarked by the BBC. Doctor Who Alhambra is not affiliated with the BBC or Big Finish. No infringement is intended. Visit our website at alhambrapodcast.weebly.com or email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. Tweet us at Alhambra Podcast. That is ALHAMBRA Podcast. Thank you.